It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and kind of a suck week among other things. One of my external hard drives, these things is sort of attached. You can't see it, but the like 2 terabyte external hard drives that connect via USB. Yeah, there was a power outage, and then it comes on, and after that, my computer will detect the drive but not read the drive. So that sucks. And thank goodness I kept backups of the Lady Bits complete episodes other than on that drive, because that's what the drive it was on. It was formatted to have things more than, 4 gigs, or it won't let you transfer kind of thing. Yeah, that was the drive that got hit. So a lot of my previous assets are currently unavailable. Does anybody know how to solve this problem? Has anybody heard of this before? Let me know. If you like what's this content, again, housekeeping, self-promotion, all that good but uncomfortable stuff, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. That is me. It helps a bunch. A lot of you have been signing up lately. I appreciate it very, very much. I want to start off with the title of this video. I don't want to tease anybody. There was a bit of excitement on Twitter yesterday. People responding to someone who apparently, in response to Anita Sarkeesian appearing at Gen Con, they decided to go on some sort of Reddit warpath or something like that, and decided to go after people like Mark Kern, Troy Levitt, who you guys know I like very much, Christina Hoff Sommers, and myself. And the way I tend to handle these things for people who are new, I don't get into this big pissing match. I don't fight. I don't name call, anything like that. I go through it. I point out the flaws in the thinking. I give the facts, and I move on. I don't get mired in this stuff because I think it benefits no one but the people trying to perpetuate the smears. I think I can show this without showing someone's username. Let me check. Okay, as long as I don't mouse over it, I can. Cool. I just have to format because I don't want to get anyone in trouble for just being a fan and being offended by this nonsense. Yes, okay, that screens everything without seeing it. So here's the accusation. Okay. Leanna Kersner and Christina Hoff Sommers are both Gamergate-aligned factual feminists, which is a similar dog whistle to race realism in terms of sounding like something it's not. Sommers has criticized CDC rape statistics, women's professional organizations, affirmative action, and #MeToo. Kersner tried to position herself as a middle ground in the first couple of months, got targeted for harassment by Milo Yiannopoulos, and aligned herself fully with the movement as a response, publishing a series of anti-Anita Sarkeesian articles and videos before going to work for The Escapist. If you're sitting here going, what do any of those things have to do with each other and or Gamergate? I'm with you, but I've been thinking about this and trying to figure it out. This is tied to the idea that The Escapist was somehow pro-Gamergate and some other things that I talk to patrons about because they are financial backers, and therefore I see patron supporters as having a right to know some of these things, but I'm not going to talk about it publicly because I don't think it benefits anyone. But okay, where I get the opportunity to work is besides the point, and it's lovely that this poster believes that people can just pick who is interested in their content. That's not the reality. But it's, they don't thread that needle. So this is just an assumption. I don't know what me doing a cosplay show for an established gaming site has to do with anything, but tried to position myself as a middle ground in the first couple of months. That sounds vaguely cynical. My attitude was I was a games reporter. I was a games writer. I still am a games writer, reporter. You guys know I go easy on that because I believe that reporters actually go out and fact gather, and that is impossible in a lot of cases in gaming. But I did not position myself as a middle ground. I remained officially neutral, and that was because, according to Gamergate, I was the enemy as a games journalist. But I do believe that sometimes it is valuable to listen and start up dialogue with your critics. And so for people who wanted to talk, I talked to them, and some of the people who became fans of this channel because of that, and continue to watch my content and comment on my content to this day can vouch for that. And I did things like I went on Sargon of Akkad's stream. Was not the best experience. I got called a lot of very interesting names. But I talked to my detractors, and that's not attempting to position myself anywhere. I saw that as doing my job. What really pulled the rug out from under me back then is I thought, oh, this is just basic standard practice. The majority are going to do this, right? Stephen Totillo talked to Total Biscuit, to his credit, even though he hates my stuff. A few other people made attempts, but not very many people who were journalists stepped up and went, all right, let's talk about your complaints, which baffled me. But was I attempting to position myself in any way? That's ridiculous. It was such an uncontrollable situation that anybody who thought they could position anything, that was foolish. And I am not a fan of manipulating situations that way. I think you basically have to state your opinions, and then other people decide your position for you. It's what they say about any art, about any performance. People are going to tell you what your art is about. It doesn't matter how many times you protest it's not. People hold on to that stuff. I got that from Tori Amos autobiography / women's self-help guide for creatives. It's a book called Piece by Piece. It's co-written by, I believe it was a Rolling Stone reporter, but I highly recommend it in terms of what it's like to be a woman in the entertainment industry and sort of how to navigate it. I found a lot of the insights very helpful. But I do need to back up as well that this poster describes me as a factual feminist. I want to nip that in the bud right there. That is Christina Hoff Sommers' brand. That is the name of her show. And I don't want anybody accusing me of stealing her ideas or stomping on her IP. I do not call myself a factual feminist. I call myself a mosaic feminist. So right then and there, this poster does not know enough about me to level valid criticisms against me. But the rest of his narrative seems to be she got bullied into submission, and basically developed this form of Stockholm syndrome, which, first of all, if that were true, which is not, wow, you have very little sympathy for someone who you believe was bullied into submission. That says more about you than me, Reddit commenter. And publishing articles, what they're referring to is a series of anti-Sarkeesian articles. That is referring to my series, How Anita Sarkeesian Almost Made Me Quit Writing About Video Games. I stand by everything I said in those articles as a snapshot of the time. They were not anti-Sarkeesian articles. They were articles critical of a social phenomenon that sort of bears her name, yes, but it had more to do with the behavior of her fans and my disagreement with her ideas. But this is an example of the sort of behavior of her fan base that I criticized in that article. The idea that these are some pretty weak arguments for comparing me to a race realist. I didn't even know what a race realist was. When I saw it, it's like, does that mean like you believe racism is real? I had to look it up. A race realist is somebody who basically creates scientific covers scientific justifications for racist beliefs. I criticize with one person, and I am akin to a racism apologist because nothing else there has maybe the Gamergate alignment, but that's all I really have to say. I think that it's fairly obvious on the face that this argument has no merit. And so I'm going to leave it there. Again, you'll note I did not call anyone any names. I did not do any sorts of call to arms or suggest that anybody do anything with this information. I simply pointed out that these accusations against me don't hold water, and I'm going to leave it there. On to your feedback for the week. Regarding the drama video question, I really appreciate you guys giving me your feedback there. The general consensus seems to be most people feel the same way I do about drama videos, but they understand that some every so often, as long as it doesn't become the majority of the content, then they're okay with it. And some people even said, if I'm going to learn about drama, I'd rather learn about it from someone with a level head. So I'm going to basically continue to do things the way I have done. Which is cool. I'm glad I was sort of finding the right level. And like I said, I don't want to do too much drama. I know what I just did could be classified as drama, but that was trying to undramatize drama because I hate this time of year for this stuff. I always get dragged into these stupid petty fights, minding my own business, and it annoys me. So I try to stick to the facts, and I try to give you guys the best content I possibly can, and I think that's the best way to handle this. So thank you for your feedback on this one. The Trump is a one-man hate movement video. First of all, I got demonetized, and then I had to request YouTube, no, monetize it, it's totally fair. And it was reversed on manual review fairly quickly. But the fact that they even demonetize that stuff, annoying. But there was a surprising amount of agreement on this. I didn't know what to call this video. I knew that even using the term hate movement was contentious. But most people, it's funny, a few friends of mine who don't normally watch my content watched that one and was like, yeah, you're right. This is silly. I don't like the guy, but you're right. This is silly. And the media is playing his game. So that was really interesting. One person said that they see CNN and MSNBC as very partisan news outlets. Either that or they're faking it very well to profit off the outrage. I don't know what CNN is anymore. I mean, they started hiring people like Rick Santorum and Jeffrey Lord. So I really can't claim they're left-wing partisans. MSNBC definitely skews left. Some shows are extremely partisan. I was very disappointed in Rachel Maddow last night. 2 nights ago, covering the secret tape on a Devin Nunes speech. I think there was one really valid point there, but I think she overdid it, and I think her partisanship did get the better of her there. Chris Hayes, as much as I like him, does pick favorites too. He tends to fall into partisanship. Chris Matthews is an unabashed partisan. But people like, I have no idea what Ari Melber's political beliefs are, other than that he really likes rap music, and I love him for that. Or hip hop, as I call it. I don't think Drake is rap. but they call it rap. They talk about rap all the time. But Nicole Wallace was communications director, I believe, for George W. Bush. You can't really call her a liberal partisan. Um, and it goes, I'm blanking on the other, they have Hugh Hewitt on every so often, who's very much right wing. They have Michael Steele, who's a Republican. And the reason I bring this up is because partisanship has almost tilted, hasn't it? It's not about whether you identify as liberal conservative anymore. It's how you feel about Trump. And in that case, MSNBC very much has a skew. They are very much anti-Trump. They branded themselves the network of the resistance. And you can't deny that. But I only bring this up to point out that we might be talking about different things when we say partisanship. Because in terms of Democrat versus Republican divide, they do have Republicans and Democrats working there as anchors. It's not just some pundit that comes on to be the enemy. And I have to give credit where credit's due there. CNN is just it's a big shit show. They bring people on to fight. And there are some personalities, there are some pundits there that I maybe they can't get a job anywhere else, but I don't know why they don't seek work elsewhere, because I think they take too much abuse online. And unfortunately, they often happen to be people of color, and they happen to be women a lot of the time. And I have seen some of them move over to MSNBC. Maybe they both do double duty, but I have to turn it off because it just feels like they are getting beat up on very tender issues for entertainment value, which bothers me. So I don't think CNN has it together enough to be partisan. You'll remember during the lead up to the 2016 election, they were all about the emails. Every night, Anderson Cooper was going on and on and on and on and on about the emails. So I don't really see them as partisan. I think they just hate everyone. There's this weird just dehumanization of politicians that CNN engages in that I really don't like. I think there's a difference between covering the news fairly and feeling like you have the right to just pick on anybody who happens to throw their hat in the ring politically. So that's my thought about that comment. Moving on to the last one. The like top 5 replies to the video about we still need to have a real discussion about ethics in games journalism. This one kind of ties into the thing I did off the top about the Sarkeesian. We'll just call him the Leanna hater. Well, I know the Sarkeesian fan, which means everybody who has ever been even remotely critical of Anita Sarkeesian must die, euphemistically. This is obviously one of these things that some people consider a dog whistle, talking about ethics in journalism. And yet, again, I'm watching Ari Melber. This is all sort of coming on together. And a guy gave him a tie as a joke. He said this run-on joke about this deliberately awful tie he wore while he was filling in for Rachel Maddow. And somebody gave him a tie. And as he's accepting it, he says, I'll run this by our ethics department to make sure I can accept the gift, kind of thing. And as much as that was a joke, it was like, this is actually a thing that we need to discuss. And like I said off the top, I take it very seriously. And again, the fact that I just assumed the standard operating procedure would be to have a discussion with some people that were really angry with the games press back in 2014 would be standard operating procedure, and it wasn't, and that left me very concerned. I knew there was a lot of, I wouldn't say it was collusion, I'd say it was cronyism back in the day. I don't think a lot of the hiring in the games industry is merit-based. I think it's friends hiring friends and friends of friends. That's just what I've seen. When I've seen people up for jobs, I don't think the most qualified person got it. I don't think the person with the viewpoint that would add more diversity to a website got hired. I think the person who had the most friends at the company got the gig. I hear a lot about corporate culture with games companies, and to me that's coded language itself for you have to agree with the politics or you're not going to get a job here. And that deeply concerns me, because some of my favorite games are games that show both sides of an issue in a way that humanizes it. I thought Far Cry 5 was very challenging in that regard, in a good way. And those games tend to be great in that regard, but you can't do a game like that without sort of defying this idea that anybody who is an extremist, and I mean they're a cult, so I want to be careful and not equate conservatism with a cult. That's not what I'm saying, but they would be identified as extreme right, the members of the what the heck, I forget what it was called, but the cult in that game, and preppers and things like that, they're sort of affiliated with the far right. The fact that they managed to humanize them at all was a real accomplishment, and they had to be open to that viewpoint to do it. And I went into the game expecting it to be much more, yay, liberalism, these guys are bad, because Ubi is a very left-wing company. But they didn't, and I really give them credit for that. Apparently, I didn't quite understand what this was. People were mentioning Dead Cells to me on Twitter. Apparently, IGN published a review for a game called Dead Cells, which turned out to be ripped off straight from a YouTuber's channel. And IGN fired the person who did it, which, that's kind of important. I hear my lines being ripped off all the time, but there's a big difference between a single line and an entire review. And what the crap. I mean, I'm glad they fired them, but who thought that was a good idea in the first place? That tells me that someone either was very lazy or was extremely crunched for time. And that's one of my big issues with the game review process, is how fast we are expected to turn these games around. That's why I don't do many reviews anymore, because Lady Bits is my number one priority. Delivering those shows on time is very, very important to me. And having to drop everything for 48 to 72 hours to power through, a 50-hour game to review it before the embargo lifts, it's insane. It's ridiculous, and it does cause people to cut corners. Certain games, the Uncharted, I forget what it's called, but the one with Chloe and what's her name, the two women Uncharted game. We had a lot of time on that one. That was beautiful. Horizon, PlayStation tends to be pretty good with its first party stuff and giving us enough time to play. And Gears of War 4. And I actually said to them, this is really great. This, generous embargo period. I like it. Because it gives us time to actually sit down and play a game the way a human being plays a game, and not have to do, 18-hour binge sessions, which are not fun. You hate the game by the end, no matter how good it is. So there are industry things to examine and consider. And I do think that I don't like saying the consumer, because you guys are more than just mindless consumers. You're fans, you're gamers. And I do think you guys have a part to play in that discussion. But it seems the general consensus on this channel seems to be everybody would love to have a conversation of this regard, but they don't think it's possible. And just because of the current climate. And that tells me that this is always how, okay, there's a need, there's a desire, but nobody thinks it can be done. And this is where I go, how can it be done? This is where I get myself into trouble of the sort I talked about off the top. But I am going to ponder how to make this work. Because I think it can be done. Just because of the high quality comments you guys leave all the time. You know, the problem, people are saying rightly that anytime anybody brings up ethics in games journalism, someone screams Gamergate at the top of their lungs and it shuts down all discussion. And I think it can be done. I think one of the rules has to be that's a do not pass go. We don't bring it up. And that's why I'd like to put the whole thing behind us, and why I don't like these constant references to it, talking about it like it's an ongoing, you know, current thing that, you know, there's this online hate movement that pretends to be about ethics and games journalism that's still harassing women. This is not productive. I know there are some people out there who still can't let it go, but they're the minority. Most people have moved on, but they still care about the issues. And I think that labeling people into anti-Gamergate and pro-Gamergate tribes, because no one's allowed to be neutral. No one. I don't think that's productive. I don't really care what someone's opinion about Gamergate, or even about me during Gamergate. I don't see how that's relevant to today. It was 3 to 4 years ago. There was a lot of fake news, so to speak. There were a lot of smears flinging around about me. Some people got the wrong idea based on those smears. They gave me a chance anyway, for whatever reason. They realized that's not me. That's all I can ask for. And again, I don't know. I guess it comes down to self-esteem or self-assurance, but I don't know why more people don't have similar pragmatic views in that regard, that it's just like, it was over. It's over. It was messy. It was a thing. It was unpleasant for everyone involved. Nobody really feels satisfied for the way it was left, but sometimes that happens. We have to close the book and move on to the next chapter, the next volume, in somewhere where it can be productive. Because the biggest problem with the whole Gamergate thing was it wasn't productive. People just dug in more and more and more and more. There was very little consensus. There was very little sort of agreement reached. There were some policy changes in some sites. There was some movement. IGN was one of them that did implement like site policies and things like that. But I really feel like all the bad blood is... I think this is a rational conclusion, but I think all the bad blood is hindering progress, is hindering common understanding, as opposed to pushing it forward. Now, I will say that the people that hate me now, they're really going to despise me after the next Lady Bits. Because it's impossible to pull punches when the topic is misogyny in games. I've been writing it this week and I'm like, oh boy, we better put a lot of jokes in here. Because yeah, it's another one of those ones where I followed the facts, I followed the theories, and my conclusions. Some people really ended up on a not great side according to those conclusions, and it's not the people I think a lot of people would think with that topic. So I'm gonna wrap there. Don't worry, guys, you'll be fine. But have a really great weekend. Avoid the heat. It's stupid humid here. I don't know about where you guys are, but it's gross here. But stay at a relatively sane temperature. Enjoy the weekend and play some games. Play some video games. Don't fight online. Play video games. Okay? Okay. Thanks for watching.